What's up YouTube? My name is Caden and you're watching Gas It Garage. In today's video, we're going to be doing part 4 of the 670 Yerf Dog go-kart project. We're going to be replacing the shocks with some new ones I got, so this thing has stiffer suspension with more travel. We're also going to be mounting the gas tank, hooking up the battery, tensioning the chains, adding a few more cross braces, and redoing the exhaust header, and then hopefully I can take this thing for a test drive. All right, so first I'd like to get some of the small stuff out of the way. I'm gonna mount the battery, the fuel tank, and the fuel pump first, and then I'll move on to the extra cross bracing, tensioning the chains, and putting on these new shocks that I got. Alright, so I have the fuel tank and fuel pump mounted. I got both of the chains tensioned properly. This one is still a little loose, but it's about where it needs to be. I also have the battery mounted and hooked up. And yes, I know everything is mounted with zip ties, but it's actually pretty solid. Like, this thing is part of the go-kart. It's not going anywhere. So right now, I'm going to deal with the shock situation. The shocks that I have are both too soft and also too short. So this thing was riding way too low and the suspension was almost bottoming out just with me sitting in it. So I got some new shocks, which are just a small upgrade from the old ones, just a small one. So I'm going to throw these on here, but I am going to have to modify my current shock mounts because these mounts on here are a little bit wider than those mounts. So I'm going to have to cut them off and re-weld them. And I'm also going to see if I have to move them because these are significantly longer than those, probably by about 4 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. so I finally got these new shocks on, and they're probably going to be a whole lot stiffer, but at least this thing will have the height and the long travel it needs for what I'm going to be doing. So let's lower this thing down and see how this new suspension setup works out. All right, these are pretty stiff, but let's see how this works. These do seem a little bit too stiff. So what I may do is cut these bottom shock mounts off and move these a little bit further back. So this thing sits a little bit lower and the shocks will be a little bit less stiff. So let's do that. All right. I moved the shocks back. They're just tacked in right now. I'll fully weld them if I like how this is. So this is kind of barely balanced on here, so this is kind of sketchy. Whoa. All right, that's a little better. I'd say that's probably about where I want it in terms of ride height. I may or may not try and jump this thing, so I'm gonna want some pretty stiff suspension in the back that can handle it. I think that's just about where I want it. So I'm gonna finish welding these in, and then this thing will be good to go. All right, so the Yerf dog is finally ready for its first test drive. And I think this thing looks absolutely awesome. There is a little leak in actually the rim of that tire that I put some JB Weld on, but the JB Weld hasn't dried yet, so it's still leaking. But we're gonna take it for a drive anyway. But man, this thing is looking absolutely insane. So I'm gonna set the camera down and take this thing for a test drive. Oh yeah, this thing works so good. And the suspension is actually perfect. Even though it's a little stiff, it's like it absorbs bumps so well. And it's so much smoother than what it used to be. So I'm gonna hop in one more time and take this thing for a little rip. Okay, we lost both chains. That's a problem. All right, let me go find those real quick. Okay, so somehow both master links on both chains broke. So I lost both chains. So I'm just gonna throw these half links on there because I don't have any more master links for 50 chain, because I wanna do a couple more rips on this thing and get a couple more cool shots. All right guys, so unfortunately I kind of ran out of time to go buy master links for this thing because I had just some other things that took priority, especially since we were getting all the other machines ready to go up to North Carolina for Mini Mayhem with Cars and Cameras, which you will see this thing in, and it was awesome. And I'm probably gonna be releasing that video in the next week or so once this video comes out. So that's gonna be it for this video, guys, because at Mini Mayhem, the brake caliper broke, and also the mounts for the steering broke. You see I had to weld that one together, and that one's all out of whack. So there's just some other things I still have to do before I can really take this thing for a proper rip. So that's gonna have to wait for part 5 of this build. So thank you all for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment, and I'll see you in part 5.